Eileo guys, and welcome back, and in today's video we're taking a look at the newest legendary, aka Talos. Hopefully that's how you say his name, but let's go ahead and start off here with the fire one. So we do have the fire one right here. He looks pretty cool, I will say. I'm definitely a fan of his design. I was kind of worried that he would look super plain, but no, the detail is there. I mean, for what it is, he's super duper decked out. And let's look at that variant real quick. Okay, yeah, I think he looks great. Anyways, the fire one is a tank type coming in with 41k HP, 2.4k attack, and then 2.4k defense. Tank type obviously is saying basically I have a lot of HP. Defense is like that of an attacker, so if you were going to build him, he's going to need a lot of defense to kind of bolster up that HP, because without enough defense and a whole bunch of HP, it's basically meaningless. But let's take a look at these skills first here. If I can click on the skill book first. So for the 3-star skill, 70% chance to reduce the enemy's defense for 2 turns. Solid as a farmable Nat 4. Obviously, you know, he's just as farmable as like a new. And all the other lovely legendaries here. And then for his 5-star skill, which indicates that it is an AoE, also has a weaken on it with a 70% chance for 2 turns. So I'm trying to think of, like, I mean, I guess you could say there's some usage in Titans right here. However, even though times have changed nowadays, it's still a steep investment for a mon that you would easily replace just because his stats are kind of subpar. So while he does have utility, I feel like in the end it's just not enough to make him viable for any type of in-game content whatsoever. I mean, if use what you can use, especially if you guys just began the game, especially with the anniversary being here, and that's a lot of especiallys. But for in-game content, I don't really see a purpose of this. I mean, it makes sense, it is a farmable fire nat 4, but his main job is just debuffing. I mean, defense down and weaken is fine, however, he literally brings nothing else to the table. So, I mean, if for whatever reason you wanted to bring him to Colossus, you could, even though Water Shelly exists and you can get Water Shelly a lot early on. However, this issue is that he's so deep into the story anyways, it's like, why would I build him up in the first place? So mileage may vary. Obviously defense down doesn't work on the big old snake boy, so it's kind of up to you, but I would just totally astro guide this one only, to be honest with you. And I didn't talk about his variant leader skill either before we look at his skill books. Crisis Aversion decreases enemies' critical hit rate by 15 to 20%. Not bad leader skill whatsoever. However, in that same scenario, it's just that this mon's bad. So hopefully we get something else that's kind of more unique or usable to put that variant leader skill to use, because that orange just isn't worth the squeeze trying to use his variant leader skill when he's just poo-poo, as the kids say nowadays. But anyways, defense down does come in with a 20% damage increase, and it goes up to 90% for 2 turns. Weaken gets a 20% damage increase and goes up to 80% for 2 turns. I mean, solid. Once again, it's a nat 4. It's just that particular kit doesn't ring any bells in my mind in terms of big usage. I will say, after Eureka, or maybe during Eureka's stay here, it's time to go ahead and start farming out some Talos, you guys. I need to get that Astro Guide filled out because I've caught 0 at the moment. Alright, and then next up we do have the water version of Talos. He's an attacker type, looks pretty snazzy here. 26k HP, 3.5k attack, and then 2.4k defense. Wow, I've been playing this game too much. If I was like, yeah, the other one has basically an an attacker's defense stat, and congratulations, he does. Attack stat's not bad, HP and defense is pretty average here. So let's take a look at these skills. So the 3-star skill is Adrenaline. 100% chance to restore 25% of his own HP, so there's some self-sustain here. And then he also has Vengeance on his 5-star skill. Very, very bizarre, because Vengeance is the less HP that you have, the more damage you will deal. So it's problematic because your maximum damage output is based on how little HP that you have. But his 3-star skill is like, you know what, we're not going to promote that whatsoever. I understand it's 25%, but think of this scenario where he's at death's door and he gets a 25% back of his own HP doing that. If the next hit is going to kill him anyways, it doesn't matter. He's just going to pass away. So once again, it's not terrible, but I don't know. With Vengeance especially, I would like to have more control over if I'm going to heal that mon or not, and I can just play Russian roulette by myself and not have the freaking game, you know, screw me over. So with less HP, more damage, but if he's healing himself and he still dies that next turn anyways, what does it matter? Skill book wise though, Adrenaline does receive a 20% damage boost and it goes up to 30%. Vengeance does receive a 30% damage boost, but we've already had, what is it, Dark Misha, where if you're going to use freaking Vengeance in the first place, why not just use a Darkmon with that higher crit damage? Why use an RGB? And I mean, this is a Nat 4 too, so if you're like, oh, Eileo, the Nat 3 League, he has 4 stars. Just FYI. So once again, I would guide this astromon. There's just simpler and not necessarily easier choices. If you play the game long enough, Misha will come around. If you want to play with Vengeance, heck, I'm sure there's a Nat 2 or something out there with Vengeance instead. But yeah, not super grand thus far. Alright, and then next up is the wood version of Talos, who is a defender type coming in with 31k HP, 2.2k attack, and then 3.1k defense. Once again, stats are solid. It's nothing special, but, you know, I have nothing to complain about thus far. But let's take a look at these skills here. So the 3-star skill is Adrenaline, but for the entire squad, based off 10% of his own max HP, which his HP pool, I mean, he's not a tank, so I get it. It's fair enough. I just really hope that books would push this up in this scenario right here. And then for the 5-star skill, damage reduction for the entire squad. Basically, this is your standard tank mon. I mean, he's there to not really do any damage. He's there to heal the squad and prevent damage from the squad. The only issue I see with that, though, is his HP pool. Is his Adrenaline able to keep up with the damage that your squad is sustaining, plus paired up with the damage reduction to make it worthwhile? And once again, you're kind of sacrificing a slot, especially in regards to PvP, of having this wood astromon on your team, you know, in terms of just making sure that your team can survive and hopefully win that round. So, give and take, I would say decent kit, just wrong element, and stat distribution could be better, but it's mainly just boiling down to wrong element. Like, maybe if you put him on like a pugilist set or something of that nature, that would be cool. Or like a damage reduction set. But once again, that's just a stretch. I would just guide him. I think he sounds interesting though. Like, don't get me wrong. Build him up for fun. But yeah, I would just astro guide him, to be honest. But taking a look at the skill books here, his AoE Adrenaline receives a 20% damage boost and goes up by 2%. 12%, that's basically useless. That literally does nothing. 12% versus 10. And then damage reduction gets a whopping 30% damage increase. Yeah. So far, RGB Talos is gag me with a machete. Alright, let's go ahead and try this here with the light version of Talos, who is an attacker type. Coming in with nearly 28k HP, even though it's 27k, 3.3k attack, and then 2.5k defense, nearly 2.6k. So decent stat distribution. This is part of the fusion tree, which I do need to check out at the end of this video here. So far, that's okay. Light mons, especially if you're new to the game here, have an innate higher crit rate than all the other mons, so getting max crit on him should not be a problem unless your gems is a problem. And if that's the scenario, make sure you guys watch this video to the very end and then go over there and watch some golem videos and start farming golems, because that's unexcusable at this day and age. Anyways, the 3-star skill is Lethal Strike. This is great for mons with a whole bunch of defense, of course. And then for the 5-star skill is Expose Weakness for 2 turns. This right here just screams Apophis. I keep changing his name every time I freaking say it. Big O Giant Snake Boy. This is great. I wouldn't say arguably farmable, just, you know, with a little bit of work, he can be obtainable if you want multiple copies for whatever reason here. But yeah, that's pretty much where he would come in at. I guess if you want it to be kind of cool, you could bring him into PvP too and maybe try and nuke some, what is it, Dark Sea Stars or Dark Siegfrieds for the heck of it. But with that 5-star skill being Exposed Weakness, hopefully, depending on his timing too, I guess in the ideal scenario, he could either like kind of line up someone else on the right side of the team to kind of time their hits with his Exposed Weakness, or depending on his speed, he could line it up so when he attacks next time, depending on how fast his 3-star animation is, he gets that Exposed Weakness. So some utility here and some damage, that's perfectly fine. And yeah, so far he seems to actually be usable, so I'm down with that. Let's take a look at the skill books though. So the Lethal Strike on his 3-star skill, 20% damage increase. Exposed Weakness, he gets a 20% damage increase and goes up to 90% for 2 turns. Yeah, 90%. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. It's nothing extravagant, but compared to what we've seen here before, this is like gold. Alright, and to go ahead and end things off here, you guys, we do have the dark version of Talos, who is a defender type, coming in with 31k HP, 2.4k attack, and then 3.1k defense. I've talked about this stat distribution in particular before, so I'm not going to harp on that anymore. Let's go over here and take a look at his skills. So the 3-star skill is Fatigue, 80% chance to fatigue the enemy for 3 turns, and it prevents them from gaining SP. This is the Dark Astromon on the latest continent in the game, and he has Fatigue. And then for the 5-star skill, it's still 80% chance to seal the enemy's passive skills for 2 turns. Not bad. I just like to have a little bit more utility when it comes to seal. Like if you're going to use seal, go in. If not, bring some type of CC skill for your 3-star skill. This is purely just a debuffing kit. He wants to make sure you can't do your passives, and he wants to make sure whoever that he's fighting doesn't get any SP. And I mean, with Crisis Aversion here, I don't know. I want to say that this astromon is terrible, I really do, but I'm actually kind of interested here. Maybe I should do a separate video about this, but yeah. We'll take a look at his skill tree first. I'm just not overall impressed with what we see here, but could there be something here that I'm not necessarily telling you guys? Stay tuned for that. But overall, I mean, he's okay. This seems pretty average. I would like to say, oh, fatigue is this, fatigue is that, but I don't know at this point in time. Definitely a PvP mon if you're curious of what I'm bantering on about here. Really no usage in PvE whatsoever. There's nothing that I could think of right off the top of my head where I would bring this astromon in over anyone else. But yeah, purely just a PvP mon. Taking a look at the skill bugs, fatigue does receive a 20% damage boost and goes up to 90% for 3 turns. Yep. And then Seal also receives a 10% activation rate, so it goes up to 90% for 2 turns, and he also receives a 20% damage boost with Seal. Damage doesn't really matter, 2.4k, even though he's a Dark Mon with the higher crit damage doesn't really matter here, but yeah, he has me curious. I definitely want to build him. Maybe for science. Maybe we can make Dark Talos great again. Maybe we could do that. Not saying that he was ever not great, but I don't know. This to me just comes off as like, what in the hell is this? I don't know. But let's take a look at his fusion tree real quick, and we can talk about that since I already have you guys here. If I can click on the right thing. Yes, I know the Bulby rebirth is going on here, and you can get Light and Dark Miho from this too, right? Yes, you can. So if you guys just began the game, go ahead and feel free to pick up all of these freaking Bulbies and make sure you get a Light and Dark Miho, because why not? Fusion wise though, let's take a look at Talos. So we have to fuse for the light one, so the light one's obviously the biggest one, or the one that you should be aiming for. And in terms of what we need to get for that, Fire Wild Fang, a Light Kokomaru, which Kokomaru by himself is farmable to get to Evo 3. You just need that light version, which we can fuse with this new guy here, and freaking, what is it, Arc. There's Dark Wormtail, and then Tao. I need to see how to pronounce his name. The Minecraft looking dude, and this can come out of the you know, the little 1 to 3 star light scam eggs, Dark Talos, and then we get to the light one. So honestly, not that bad, especially with how things have been set up here lately. Pulling a couple of Fire Wild Fangs, if you want to go ahead and throw in some freaking Gleams too, that would speed up that whole entire process here. But yeah, really not that bad whatsoever. So definitely one of the easier ones to get, which I would hope so, because of his kit in particular here. But that pretty much wraps up the whole Talos review, you guys. If I can go over here back to one of him, that pretty much wraps up the whole Talos review, you guys. In terms of what you should be aiming for personally, just go for the light one. Dark one, I may or may not have something in store for that one. Maybe it could be a competition, I don't know. Feel free to let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments below. But RGB, straight up Astro Guide. Build them up if you want. Go for the light one as soon as possible, especially if you're into the big old snake boy. Dark one at this time is okay, average, nothing super special, nothing awful. But if you want to compare him to other legendaries, definitely not a very good legendary, especially as a Dark Mon. But I think, what is it, Dark Chimera? That's pretty terrible too. One of those is also bad, so it's no surprise here. But yeah, that's pretty much it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully see you guys in the next one. Peace out.